So I get to introduce what I'd like to call a good friend of mine from an industry perspective. Some of you may know him. He's going to be talking about the Brokerage Use of Standards. So currently he is the co-chair of the Transport Workgroup. He's actually been involved in RESO for many, many years. He is also the president of engineering at Exp Realty, one of the fastest growing brokerages in the nation. They pretty much hopped up in the past couple of years with thousands and thousands of agents within that virtual brokerage, and he heads up their engineering aspects. Prior to that, for many years, he was at Black Knight working on product with the Paragon MLS platform. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce Steve Ledwith. Steve, come on up.
I tend to wander when I'm on stage, so they gave me the lapel mic here, so I wouldn't be walking away from the microphone and no one could hear me. So, good morning. I think, help me out, Sam, I'm the one person standing between us and lunch. Thanks, appreciate that. So we're going to talk a little bit about EXP, who we are, what we do, and as Jeremy mentioned, we have grown considerably over the last year, or I guess 2 years now. Who we are, what we do, the fact that we're building everything that we do now on standards. I've been with the company for about 2 years. We are a cloud-based brokerage. So we're a brokerage that does not have real estate. The folks from Tribus were up here talking about where do we put an office. We put them all in the cloud. So we can go wherever we want. We don't need that prime real estate in Manhattan. We have an office in the cloud. We have grown incredibly in the last 2 years from roughly 2,500 agents to over 2,000 or 20,000 now. So it's been a pretty crazy ride from that perspective. We have operations now in every state. We are broker owned. We're not a franchise model. It is broker owned. We operate everywhere. We're in almost all of Canada now as well. And then we're looking, to go elsewhere. Again, mentioned here, District of Columbia, 5 Canadian provinces now. To put a highlight on the growth, that's what it looked like. This is from our recruiting slides that our agents use as they try to attract more folks. This is what it looks like. This is a pretty crazy graph of where we went and all the growth that started basically the middle of 2017 and basically continues now. So everybody out in the room is thinking, wow, that's a lot of things, that's a lot of change. And you're right, it definitely is, which is why we are doing things a little differently. Some of you that have heard of EXP probably know that we use a virtual world. We are avatars all day. I wander around in world from my office in my house in Minneapolis, but I'm in world. It is a campus. We have buildings for accounting. There's a building for technology, for tech support, for our auditorium for training. We have, I think, more than 200 hours of training every week that people can come into the world, our agents, and learn from other brokers, other agents, our partners. Anyone who really wants to interact with our agents can do it from wherever they are. I think one of the neatest or funniest things that I saw was in a very early on a training session, and someone said, how many of you would drive 3 hours to go somewhere if you knew that the people in the room had more than 100 years of real estate experience combined? It was like, oh, that was great. And we had 100 people in the room, and I think there was almost 1,000 years of experience. And you didn't have to drive anywhere. I mean, you could have gone to your coffee shop if you wanted, but it allows us to bring a lot of things together that just is not possible when you're talking about people having to be in a real spot. And I mentioned our community. So these are things that you can see. We have people that stand right up front. When you load into World, you come into one place, and everybody's kind of standing there, and every now and then you're standing on people. It's a little strange. But there are concierges right up front that are there to help you figure out where you're trying to go to get where you want. There are menus and maps in the World so you can figure out where you are. You don't actually need the driving directions. You can walk around. You can get lost on the speedboats, which we have in World, if you want to go drive around. One of our core values as a company is fun. So there are speedboats and there's a pirate ship and there's a lot of other things that, food trucks that we put out on the beach and fireworks and that sort of thing, just so that as people are in and having a meeting, you have somewhere fun to go. I do all of my interviews at a picnic table next to the beach because it's just a fun place and you can actually hear, before you sit down at the picnic table, you can hear the ocean noise that we're piping in there. So it's a pretty interesting thing, but it gives us an opportunity to think differently about how a brokerage needs to operate. As Jeremy mentioned, I worked for Black Knight for a long time. I was with Paragon and had a lot of opportunity to interact with MLS and brokerage. And we all think about what we do pretty much the same way. And this has really given us an opportunity to think differently about what we do. And to that point, for us, standards are foundational. We are building, Tony Beach is out here in the room, he's building brand new tools for us because we do have a national reach. We have a significant footprint. It's hard to think about it. Someone mentioned yesterday there are 600 MLSs. I don't know the actual count right now, but I think it's higher than that. We have agents active in 400 markets, which means we need data for our agents in 400 markets, and we need it across Canada. It's pretty amazing, right? This is a big picture view of what we try to do every day as a brokerage, as our agent count is growing and we're building internal tools and processes. Along with that is, how do we get the data to help operationalize what our agents are doing so that we can help them be more productive? And as the guys from Tribus were saying, how do we help our agents be productive and be successful? That's what they expect from their brokerage, and that's what we expect. So as we've all been talking about standards, what I want to do is from an EXP standpoint, we benefit tremendously from the standards work groups, from most of them. I've been in Data Dictionary for a long time. As mentioned earlier, I'm the co-chair of transport. We try to give back, and this is, I think in past RESO events, we've had a lot of sales pitches or things that felt like a sales pitch, that we don't call it that. This is my sales pitch to you, for the people in the room, as you think about what you get as a benefit of being a member of RESO, how can you give back? What could you do, or who in your organization could join in on this, right? For me, the benefit of transport is that common schema. We talk about how to get the data from one place to another. That's super important. It's very important for us as a consumer. It was just as important for me when I was at a MLS system provider so that all of our MLSs could support their brokers. So how can we give back? So while we're talking about what EXP does, it's also a really not very veiled sales pitch to get everyone else in the room to join in on a work group and commit to the calls and be there. So again, how are we giving back? The fun one on this list for me is a replication, RCP. Yesterday's, I think it might have been Sam, was talking about what happens in the bar. And it's really true. The replication work group that spawned out of transport happened in the bar in Milwaukee. Super late. I think we ended up getting thrown out of the bar. All good reasons. It was just late. We weren't getting super rowdy. But that has now become a proposed standard in less than a year. And for those of you that have been at RESO for a long time, like, wow, we did something in a year. That's pretty good. We tend to not go that quickly. But here we are because we had the right people who needed it and wanted it and saw the value, and they were willing to jump in and give back. So as I think about what Tony and his team are trying to do, this is a huge, huge process for gathering that kind of data. And I think everyone this morning has talked about the same challenges. How do we get there? What does that look like? We all speak RETs if you've been in this industry. How do we convert that into Web API? How do we get the folks that are really trying to do it to come in here and be involved? Oh, I hit the wrong button. There we go. So one of the benefits of being I was going to say a fairly new brokerage, but that's not true. We've been around for 10 years. But for the current area where we are in our life cycle, we're building new tools. So we've built on the Data Dictionary Schema 1.6, which has helped us immensely for building out that framework, knowing that we can take that and expand it as we need, do what we need with it, but understanding that everybody else is also talking in this same language, which helps immensely for the conversations that Tony has to have. We're also in a really fortunate spot that we don't have a customer base already that has expectations about what tools they should have. They do have some, but we don't have a list of tools that we've been providing for 3 or 4 years that are built on older standards or were built already on RETs. We're able to go out and do greenfield building. For those of you that are developers in the room, do you like doing anything that's greenfield? That's kind of fun to go out and blaze a new trail and not be dependent on something else. But talking about what it means for standards, Tony did some research for us, and it is that we want a web API feed. And so we've been doing this now since the beginning of the year, and we've asked for a web API feed from every vendor that we go to. And as you can see, 66% of the time, we get RETs. I think everybody up on stage today has said basically the same thing. While we want web API, we don't want to rush it, I agree, but we do want more people to have web API. And I think we're getting to that point where it makes sense. When we talk about data onboarding, when we get the web API and its data dictionary, it's 3 to 4 hours. We can onboard customers. I can remember a time not that long ago where onboarding a customer was a 30-day minimum process to get their data in, and then they reviewed it for 30 days, and then we put it in beta for 30 days, and the agents got the tool they wanted, 3 months after we said, hey, by the way, this is coming. Right? We're now talking about 3 to 4 days that we can turn around from getting a feed to having it available in our internal systems, which is pretty amazing. If we get a data dictionary RETs feed, which there are some of those, it's not that much harder, right? It gets us 4 to 6 hours. It's data dictionary. We already know what the mapping is. It's dealing with the local fields, which is fantastic. And when it's just straight up RETs and it's not a standards-based feed, it's a couple days for us. Day and a half, 2 days. It takes a while, and nobody wants to do that. But again, 66% of the time we're getting RETs. And while I think a lot of those are data dictionary now because everyone in this room loves standards and they all want to be certified, we're getting there. But again, think about how you can give back to what we're all doing to make this better. So again, I want to touch on and do a little sales pitch on how we benefit from data dictionary, what it means to us, and then how we're giving back. So obvious benefits here. I think everyone in the room probably knows these things. But the big ones are predictability. You know that if someone says we're giving you a data dictionary feed, that bedrooms and bathrooms and a few other fields that are sometimes a little squirrely, you know they're going to be done the right way. I can remember from my former life having things where we had total bedrooms and it could be 1.8. What the heck does that mean? But it was just how they were counting partial rooms in the house or bathrooms when you could have 2.6. And nobody knew what the 0.6 meant. But that's how it got entered into the field, and it came out as an integer, and there was no way to know, or a decimal in that case, and no way to know what it meant. So now knowing that predictability, I think, has simplified a lot of those things. And I suspect that all of the people who are ingesting data are benefiting from that today. So again, how do we give back? We provide input based on what we run into. So as Tony and team run into issues where things don't seem right, Tony has a direct connection to the transport work group, and we're going to work on a way to make sure that everybody has that same sort of avenue to give back so that you can come tell us, hey, maybe I don't want to go, report them, but I want to say, hey, we're working with X, Y, and Z. This is what's going on. Can we figure out, is that a standards problem, a certification problem? What is it, so that we can get the right people involved? And then common fields. So the things that we see all the time that we need as a brokerage, a little different than maybe a CMA versus a IDX website. But what are the fields that we know we need? We're sharing that information back as much as we can. And that drives the payload suggestions also that we're trying to make. So a technology-enabled brokerage, this was actually the really big part of our presentation. Tony and team have been working really hard on this, and I'm super excited to be able to make 2 announcements. And I need to thank Tony and Greg, if Greg is in the room, Greg Lemon, and pretty much everyone at RESO for making this happen in the last few weeks. We are a data consumer. but we are also a data provider because we are a very large MLS with a huge footprint. So we have built our own RESO certified web API. That has been certified as of a couple days ago. Saturday, I think, is when this finally happened. Not like getting it right down to the minute. And we're also certified on the dictionary 1.1. Exp Realty is a brokerage. We are involved in standards. We give back. But not only that, we're doing it. We're out there. It was super important to us to be the first, to lead the way, to say this can be done as a brokerage, right? An MLS has certain requirements on them. An MLS provider has requirements on them. As a brokerage who has a lot of data that we bring in and that we'll be sharing out, we wanted to do it the RESO way. So what does this mean for us? Like, why is this important? One, being first, and if any of you have ever met a real estate agent, there's a little bit of competitiveness. So folks inside our organization were very excited that we were going to be first, and we're eager to make this happen, and made sure a lot of people were available. But what's the really important part for us is that having these services available, that we can really control our own data as a brokerage, which I think is where this all really started out of a few years ago. We have data for about 40% of the market today. We'll be in well over 60% by the end of the year, probably much higher than that. I don't want to put any pressure on you, Tony. Just saying. We'll give you an update next RESO. But we also now know that while we control our data, because we're standards-based and we have a certification, all of you know that you can work with us, right? We can interact with tools vendors, with third parties, with all sorts of organizations within the real estate space, and we're all talking the same language already. That was very important to us. That was the most important piece of what we were doing, was trying to get away from every third-party vendor saying, hey, we want to integrate, we want to do this, we want to do that, and turning it around to say, that's awesome. If you want to work with us, here's how you do it. And it's a standards way. It's the way we've all been working with, and it's how you expect to be able to work with everyone else. And that's huge. And add to that, that now that we're being standards-based and that we're certified and that we're out here talking about it, official announcement, so you guys did hear it first, we can help incubate innovation. Other areas do it. MLSs have that opportunity. But here we are with our data about our agents and our listings, and we can work with the up and coming, the folks that have mentioned, hey, if we just had some data, now within all of the rules, I know there's MLS people, we understand the rules, the display rules, all of those fun things. We're part of this, we get that, but here we are able to help some companies come try out a tool where before getting broker data from one brokerage in one MLS took, a month, and another brokerage took another month. Well, here we are in 400 markets that we can now really start to innovate for our own users, for our own agents. It's one more reason why more and more people will want to join EXP. And look at that. I made it through quick because I know everybody's hungry. So here for questions. If you guys don't know, that's Tony Beach right there. Tony's been around this industry for a really long time. It's got to be 20 years. In various capacities, he runs our team for data services, data acquisition. But if you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer them. Tony will be around and answer your questions as well. So anything I can do for you? No? All right. Man, that was good.
Exp a hand for getting certified.
Thank you. It's all you.